Go ahead. Okay, I'm gonna start the meeting. Looks like we're gonna be shy of a quorum again, but the only action item we have today is actually minutes. And we've been trying to get minutes approved since January. We still have not been able to do that, so um
So I guess we need to ask the folks that are here, if they're okay with continuing as a committee of the whole.
yeah, we can ask. Does anyone object to committee continuing as a committee of the not so whole? There are just some presentations. It looks like one's on the comprehensive transit plan and the active transportation plan. And then I know there'll be some updates from some folks.
Is it okay if we ask if these are going to be covered at a TAC? At the Thursday, if, will the TAC agenda, the Technical Advisory Committee agenda have ATP and CTP?
Chris, do you know that?
CTP is on Thursday, so we could skip that if you want. Unless anyone wants to hear the CTP existing project presentation today.
And I don't know, I don't want to rob any of the members of the public or any citizen committee members that may be tuning in for that. I just.
Looks like we have Sebastopol, John.
Yeah, so there are some members that of this committee that don't regularly attend
Okay.
TAC. Although maybe we could see if anyone in the room is planning on attending anyways. And then the ATP item is just a discussion, but it's not going to be.
Okay. In that case, I would be okay with a meetings committee of the whole.
Say that again.
I would be okay with meetings as a committee of the whole.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments on that? No. Okay, then we will meet as a committee of the whole. And then we're gonna move past the minutes. There is in the packet notes from the last meeting in July, which we won't be voting on because there was not quorum then. And then, so we'll move on to public comment on items not on the regular agenda. So nobody? Okay, thanks. Item number 5.1, presentation on or discussion on the active transportation plan updates and implementation monitoring process. Dana?
Great, thank you. So as far as the progress on the SCTA-led active transportation plans, 3 of the local jurisdiction plans the public drafts are posted online. So there's a link in the agenda to that webpage. It's Cloverdale, Sebastopol, and Sonoma's draft plans are posted. The plan for Healdsburg is coming soon and will be followed by Roanoke Park and County of Sonoma, looking like in the next couple of weeks. So and then the countywide plan will follow as well. The plans will be out for public review and through the end of November. So we have a good long time to get feedback on those. And yeah, that's pretty much my update for the status of the plans. I would like to talk about a process for monitoring and monitoring progress of implementing the plan. But before I do that, I'd just like to open it up to jurisdictions that are not involved in SCTA's process to provide updates on the progress for their local plan updates.
I guess I could go first. So the city of Santa Rosa, we're just working on our draft recommendations. So we've had an internal group, just our traffic engineering division. And we've been kind of doing a first go at our draft recommendations. Now those have been sent to Alta, and then once they finish reviewing them, we should, in the next couple of weeks, have them out to the public so people can review and then give comments back. That's about all I got.
And in Petaluma, we're also working through our drafting process and also updating our proposed project map and priorities. And I think we're expecting that we're going to city council with a workshop in November and then targeting adoption by end of the year at one of the council's December meetings.
When are you planning on finishing ish? Do you think?
We probably won't finish till sometime next year, like Marchish.
So in terms of monitoring progress, this is something that we haven't exactly done at the countywide level in the past. We've only really measured progress from plan to plan. But it is something that has been of interest. We've been asked about quite a lot from our board members, from the public, just really wanting to see how quickly progress has been being made on active transportation projects. And in the local agency plans that are being developed through SCTA and Fair and Peers, there's discussion of monitoring, like a plan for monitoring and reporting out on progress on an annual basis. And then in the countywide plan, there's also recommendations for SCTA to report out on countywide on progress of implementation of plans. We want to start the discussion about a process for reporting to SCTA and giving us the ability to report kind of countywide on progress for implementation. I just kind of want to start the conversation and see if any of the local agencies have started thinking about their internal process for monitoring and reporting on plan implementation, and how we might be able to align that and have reporting to SCTA so that we can compile it and report out countywide. I believe that the draft local plans under Fair and Peers are all saying on an annual basis. But I'm wondering if there's any thought that's been put into that in terms of when that would happen and how that reporting would be done. So I think, we don't need to totally nail down the process right now, but I just kind of want to open it up for thoughts and comments on that.
Yeah, we kind of have a process already that we're doing with projects that we know are either in the planning phase or the design phase. And then we've been changing their designation on a map. So we have a live map on our website where you can go and look and see. And it's just color coded, like one's like a green triangle and it means something like maybe it's in the planning phase, right? So we've been monitoring that like yearly and updating it semi-regularly, like probably quarterly, so that when projects come through that we can just easily update that. And just all we do is send a little bit of information over to our GIS team, send them the segment and what upgrade we've done to the existing roadway.
And then are you taking that on any frequency and saying how many, projects or miles of bikeways, for example, have been installed?
Yeah, we haven't really done the mileage. I know when Bjorn was working for us, he did like a time lapse type thing. That was pretty cool. We haven't done that again. Might be something to look into. It was a great idea because you could kind of see the progress over the years. So it's a good idea to bring back up and maybe think about reporting back all the mileage we've done this year, especially. We've gotten a lot done around downtown.
Seems to me that there's gonna be overlap with the reporting that we're sort of committing to with the Vision Zero tracking. A lot of the Vision Zero projects, I think for Katati are probably gonna be, you'll find them within probably our active transportation plan. I think there might be some more vehicular focused intersections, but I think there will be some of that in there. So on that note, I guess we're gonna have to develop a system for tracking all of our projects now with Public Works. As a planner. It's a different department. They're not used to reporting out that kind of information.
I can share the report card from the Vision Zero action plan if that'd be helpful, just for some ideas. Get some, there are things like miles of bike facilities and miles of new sidewalks, things like that. So Drew, can I share my screen? Okay. All right, let's see.
Which sounds like what I remember my vague recollection of the AT plan draft. Miles of new sidewalks and I mean, for our part, we do a complete, we try to do every year, and form a complete streets, we call it complete streets report to our council. Usually falls around every spring when we do it, so we can make that happen. I don't know if it's the best timing or not, but it's what it is. We can change that too.
Okay. Great. So that's already built in to your
Yeah, it appears on a forecast. And so when such people get around to it. But we can make it happen.
I don't know where we are at with that now, but
We have a.
kind of
fillable
identified
PDF.
who is going to be responsible for reporting out, but I think that's where we left it.
Yeah, we have a little bit of money through a Safe Streets for All grant to help automate some of it, but right now we have a fillable PDF that you can use to kind of enter in. So it's basically this sheet right here, and you can fill in where those X's are, the mileage and those metrics you could take to your council or put in like a newsletter or something. Yeah, and Adam's been working on some new metrics that we can.
Right, so we have the progress metrics in the Vision Zero action plan. There's a lot of them. They're very diverse from different sources. So that's, part of what we're focused on is trying to evaluate how to streamline this process and definitely look at where there's overlap with the ATP and make sure that, we're just asking for information once, and particularly if possible, trying to align it when there's already reporting requirements. So we're maybe trying to align with what your schedule is already for reporting to different bodies. So something that we're definitely going to be exploring coming up in the next few months.
So we also, like Santa Rosa, we have an online ArcGIS online interactive bike map that shows our existing and proposed bike facilities. And that what's currently showing is based on the 2008 bicycle and pedestrian master plan. But obviously once we adopt our new active transportation plan, that will populate this map. So we'll definitely keep that updated on an annual basis, or just as projects are implemented, we will make those changes, move things from, proposed to existing, or, if a street is upgraded from a class 2 to a class 4, make that change. And it would probably, I know not every city has the ability to update their own kind of GIS or their own bike map in GIS, but that does seem like something that could easily be standardized throughout the county. I know you have the countywide bike map already, right? In a similar, I think you have it in ArcGIS online. So that
we definitely do. That's one of the ideas we're exploring, but
okay.
Sure, that would be a great opportunity. We'll have to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, so I think, if we have the spatial data for all these plans, we'll have a baseline, right? Here's the existing bike infrastructure throughout the county, and then city by city, you can easily calculate the mileage or the completion of each plan. I guess where it gets a little tricky is like we have a lot of existing bikeways that are, don't live up to best practices, right? So those class 2s on arterials or class 3s that we want to turn into class 4s. So how do you, kind of demonstrate that progress when you're not implementing a new bike facility, but you're upgrading an existing one? That's kind of tricky. And then on the pedestrian side, obviously, that's also, I haven't really seen a uniform approach throughout the county to how we all, how specific we are about sidewalk gaps and areas where we want to install new crosswalks or upgrade existing ones. It's always a lot more challenging to capture that geospatially, I feel like, in these plans. They end up looking kind of like bike plans, even though we do have a lot of pedestrian improvements outlined, but that's because I feel like the ped improvements are just harder to pinpoint on a map. But
It would be helpful, I think, to know what it is that you would want to track. Is it going to be miles of bikeway or, crossings upgraded or?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely miles of bikeway facilities. I think in the case you're talking about where there's an upgrade of an existing facility, we could calculate it by class. And so if it is going from a 2 to a 4, then we'd be able to show that progress, right? Increases in class 4 bikeways. We, kind of what we have as draft is, we also have linear feet of sidewalk gaps, pedestrian, KSI pedestrian and bike involved collisions. And I think that is, something that is already being monitored by Vision Zero. Number of crossing improvements installed. And then some more specific things about active transportation improvements around transit and then upgraded or new bike parking facilities.
Come on down, Emily.
Thanks. I guess I'm wondering if your monitoring is going to include, standards for how quickly improvements are being made. I know these are discussions that have been had in some communities, particularly those that have worked with City Thread. But the goal, for instance, of implementing 20 miles of new bike facilities within a year or 2 years or whatever the time frame is, just to make sure that there is a standard that that communities are working toward. I'm curious if that's a part of this monitoring. And then my other question is just around the county's involvement. I know there's nobody here from PI, but I know that they've put some money toward a position to monitor active transportation improvements at the county level, and actually, sort of help oversee some of that prioritization. So I'm curious how that's gonna, if you know how that's gonna come into play with this.
Yeah, so I think the same recommendations are being made for the unincorporated county. I don't have updates on that position and filling it, so. But yeah, I would think that it would be that person who would be staffing that. SCTA has not set targets for how quickly implementation is to happen. I think that's something that would be done at the local level, and I'm not sure if any local jurisdictions have made targets or goals like that at this point.
we are on track we're identifying kind of like a near-term primary network or priority network of bikeways in our plan that will So we'll have a very quantifiable number of miles that we want to focus our efforts on first. And everything our council, like, we kind of followed the rest of the agencies and SCTA with the Vision Zero by 2030. And they also adopted a carbon neutrality goal by 2030. So I feel like everything's kind of pointing to 2030, and it would make sense for our primary bike. That's what we will recommend to our council, is that we complete our build out of that primary low stress, all ages and abilities bike network by 2030. Can't tell you exactly how many miles it is right now, but we'll be able to soon.
Are there any other jurisdictions that have set or discussed similar goals?
Thought he does not. I'd be surprised if we would. So a lot of it is gonna be availability of funding
Right.
and resources.
Motor Park is not either, although now that it's mentioned. You might think about it.
Just a follow-up question then, or is somebody?
Go ahead.
I guess, do you envision any sort of, I mean, if progress is not being made after all this time has been spent planning, what happens then? Or what does SCTA do?
Well, I think that most of our role in that is helping the jurisdictions find funding for implementing the projects. I think that there's a desire and willingness is funding that's the barrier. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any yeah, there's no punitive things that,
Stick, more of a-
right, more of a, like, and provide, like, helping to provide, incentives and resources to implement projects.
And if I may add, environmental review can also be a barrier. Also acquisition can be a barrier. We, from regional parks with class 1 trail, we typically don't do eminent domain for our connections for those trails. And so acquisition for the corridors needed can take a while. And it's a process. And back to environmental review, we don't necessarily know what we have or what we're working with until much further into a process, which might dramatically affect the timeline and additional studies needed. And yes, I agree with funding needed for implementing each of the phases, the acquisition, scoping, the acquisition, design, environmental review, final development, and then monitoring, with mitigation monitoring afterward. And we all desire to make the connections as we can.
And I think the governor just signed a bill that will help with the CEQA when it comes to bike facilities and pedestrian access. Make it exempt from CEQA review.
And is that
In certain
beyond
cases, what?
is that beyond what's currently exempt?
Yeah, I mean, he just signed it. That was the headline, and I didn't read the whole article, and I didn't go and read the bill, but it did seem like it was a new exemption path for certain types of bike and pedestrian access. Yeah.
One other thought I have, to the extent possible, I do think it's a good, not only tracking what types of bikeways we're implementing, but whether they, maybe this is something that SCTA can help agencies figure out on a, using GIS, is whether or not the facilities that they're implementing meet the NACTO all ages and abilities guidance based on how busy the streets are, how fast, like what the posted speed limit is, other roadway characteristics. That's kind of our North Star, is to have for every project in our bike map, a simple yes or no. Is this, does this meet the NACTO all ages and abilities criteria?
Yeah, that sounds really helpful. In the plans that we're developing, we are striving for that, but there's certainly, especially in the unincorporated
Yeah,
county, a
that's
lot of
really tricky.
project recommendations that
Yeah.
will not, it's just it's feasible to do something, but
Yeah.
not necessarily to meet the knowledge and abilities.
Yeah, that's so much more in a rural context. That's a lot. That's asking a lot more out of the county. Yeah.
But I could see that being
Yeah.
really useful to have like a simple checkbox, especially if it's on an MTC active transportation network where that is a requirement.
And then if I may, the other, another area SCTA continues to help is some of these regional projects. Much longer term in the pipeline, Highway 37, and the associated connections there. It's a much bigger project and much longer term and much more complicated. So SCTA has been an asset to work with on those.
Just to follow up real quickly on the bill that was passed, it's Senate Bill 689. And it's focused on those local coastal programs to make it easier to amend their planning documents to allow for bike lanes, dedicated transit lanes, and pedestrian walkways.
Seems something different, but maybe that's it. It's for adjusting plans and not actual projects.
To amend their local coastal programs, it says.
I wonder if this is something different.
It's for the Coastal Commission,
Mhm.
taking away some of their
Right.
ability to block bike lanes and transit.
I think that's reading between the lines, yes.
Well,
Any-
yeah, I think this has been really helpful, and I think, I'd like to continue the discussion. And, maybe come up with some more concrete proposals for the process for monitoring.
Is there anybody online that has anything to contribute? I don't see anything. Okay. All right.
Right, thank you.
All right, we'll move on then to, and I just realized we forgot to do introductions, so, but, hello, everybody. We're not going to do it today.
Wait, before we move forward, if we're not doing introductions, I have to step away like 10 minutes early.
Pardon?
I have to step away 10 minutes early.
Okay. Section 5.2, the comprehensive transportation discussion. Probably most people got emailed in the last couple of days.
Yes, and I will, I just have a few slides to help kind of guide the conversation, but I think at the last meeting, I probably talked about our plans to update the comprehensive transportation plan. So we're in the middle of that right now. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the project list. So how we're updating the project list and how that's going to be proceeding this fall. So let me go ahead and find that. And I'll be doing this. So this in full screen mode. So yeah, we're updating our comprehensive transportation plan. We do this every 4 or 5 years just to make sure that the projects and policies and everything in there are still current and useful to SCTA and everyone across the county. So a big part of that is actually the list of projects. So this is what we have in the currently adopted CTP. So there are almost 300 projects in the plan. You can see that there are 111 bicycle and pedestrian projects. I would say these are projects that are over $1 million in cost or more. So all of the smaller projects we include in programmatic categories, just buckets of smaller projects combined together. So a pretty big need for different projects across the county. the comprehensive transportation project list is financially unconstrained. So, you know, a lot of these projects have no funding attached yet, but we want to keep them on the radar and keep them kind of teed up for funding opportunities as they come up.
Does that include maintenance?
There is a maintenance category, yeah. Is it not shown on here?
I didn't see it.
We do have maintenance cost estimates in the plan, so I'll update this. It may be buried. There's probably a bicycle and pedestrian maintenance line item
Mm.
in that 111 there, but I'll check on that and I can follow up with how that's listed out in the project list, but it is definitely included. So there are a number of reasons why we track projects in the CTP. One is just to have a place to identify financially unconstrained transportation needs and priorities. So a lot of these show up in general plans as needs or other local area plans as needs and for connections. They'll also show up in kind of high profile plans like the regional transportation plans, but generally those need to be kind of large regionally significant projects and also have funding attached. So we need to have a spot where we can have these vision, bigger projects live until they're ready to proceed in the process and get additional funding and eventually get implemented. Another thing we do as part of the comprehensive transportation plan is we look at the future. So we look at how, you know, people will travel across the county in the future, where, you know, how difficult or easy it'll be. We look at housing population and job forecasts and, you know, how people will be getting around. So it's important for us to have a good idea of what major projects may be implemented in the future as well. So that's another reason we track these projects in the CTP. We're also required to feed major regional projects into the regional transportation plan. So for projects to get into that plan, they need to be in the CTP first. And the regional transportation plan opens up a whole category of regional funding that a lot of these larger projects need to get implemented. And then SCTA is also required to have an updated policy and planning document to help guide our programming process. So that's another big aspect of the CTP. And as part of that, we include all of these projects in that plan. So this is a visual on kind of how a project may start and kind of proceed. So through those different levels through implementation. So that outer ring is the universe of transportation ideas. And this is a graphic that was developed by MDC to kind of help track, you know, how all of these project lists are interrelated. We have one for the CTP, MDC has one. There's a Caltrans tip list. And projects are eventually implemented. So the universe of transportation ideas, these are all those visionary projects, right? So there's a good idea that will provide good connections, that will provide improvements to our transportation system. And a lot of those types of projects will start in a general plan and then filter into the comprehensive transportation plan. Once there's funding attached to that, they'll start trickling into that regional transportation plan to get teed up for additional funding opportunities. As it moves further along, it may show up on that Caltrans near-term programming document or the TIP, and then eventually it'll move towards implementation or be a committed project. This is another way of looking at that. You know, there may be a new project idea. It'll eventually show up in a CTP or a general plan. Then it could filter into the regional transportation plan, be selected for funding, show up in that Caltrans funding list, and then move towards implementation and project development. So just a few ways to visualize that. So we're going to be updating the project list in a few phases as part of this update. So we'll be starting out with updating our existing project update. So tackling that list of almost 300 projects and making sure that those are still current and updated. And then we'll move on to new projects. So we'll be mailing out a project spreadsheet with all of those previous projects to each jurisdiction. So not the entire list, it'll be filtered down for projects in your jurisdiction. With information on, you know, a project description, location, estimated cost, and attached associated funding. So projects under a cost of 1 million don't really need to be included in the CTP. We handle those in these programmatic categories. And then there are a number of different bits of information we'd like you to review and update, including contact for your jurisdiction. So who's reviewing it and updating the information so we can follow up if we have any questions. Project name, project description and location, the type, cost, and amount and source of identified funding. And one really important thing is to, if it's an existing project, let us know if it should be carried forward, right? If it's been completed or if it's dropped off the radar, let us know and we'll take it off the list. So it doesn't need to continue showing up there. So those will go out toward the end of this week. So many of you have participated in this process before. You've had a PDF or spreadsheet that you've used to update this information. So when we're asking that you review that and respond back by October 31st with any updates. So here is a look at the project list update schedule. So right now we're at that first piece right there, updating existing project information. At the October TAC meeting, we'll issue a call for new CTP projects. So we'll have likely a PDF form that you fill out to put the new project information in there. We'll work on reviewing that, compiling it, and having a draft updated CTP project list in January and February. So we can bring that back to this group and the TAC for review. During the winter and spring, we'll be doing that kind of long-range visionary performance assessment, looking at all the projects in the CTP and how that impacts, future travel, things like greenhouse gas emissions, VMT, safety, things like that. Next summer, David and his team will be issuing a call for the SCTA funding program cycle 2, which will really dial or look at near-term funding. So building on that, as part of the CTP, we'll be developing a short-term implementation plan next summer and fall. So one thing that we'd like to do as part of the CTP is not only look at that longer range future, but also look at what we can do in the near term in the next 10 years. And so after all that work, we'll be releasing a draft CTP next fall and working on releasing a final CTP by the end of next year. So next steps is just look for that updated worksheet. So I'll be sending that out likely to the TAC representative from each jurisdiction. But I'll also copy the CBPAC representative as well, because there are many bicycle and pedestrian projects on there that you'll probably want to update and take a look at. So there'll be some coordination between the CBPAC and the TAC on those updates. But yeah, that's where we're at now. And I know we don't have a CBPAC in October, so we'll need to send out a separate email to everyone about the call for new projects in October. So that'll definitely go to the TAC, but we'll send it out to this group as well. So I think that's it for the existing projects update for the CTP. So be happy to answer any questions or take any comments, especially on how it's gone in the past and how we can make the process easier. I know Edie's been through it a number of times before, but yeah. So I tried to make it the update spreadsheet's pretty simple and easy to update. So there'll be highlighted sections to focus on. So those are really the sections that would be most useful to focus on and update.
Feel like we just completed this.
I know, like 4 years.
It does. It seems like
4 years
just a
goes,
year ago.
goes fast. Yeah.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Chris? Anybody online? All right, well, keep an eye on your emails. And then also you just put a survey out. Did you mention the survey?
Yeah, so we included the link in the agenda packet. We have a survey focused on the CTP goals and objectives and vision. So Ross, who's on line, helped us develop that survey along with the planning team here at SCTA. So we have flyers and posters and everything ready that are getting out in the community. We're already getting responses to the survey. If you are able to help promote that survey, Ross has some language that you can attach to newsletters and social media, and also a QR code that'll take you to the survey in Spanish and English. So, and if you'd like flyers for, you know, your city offices or city hall or other events, we can provide those as well.
All right. Well, that's the meat of the agenda. We'll move on to roundtable discussion. And start with River Park.
I don't think I have any.
Nothing.
I'm Elizabeth Tyree, Sonoma County Regional Parks. Our office space has moved. Should you be trying to visit regional parks or public infrastructure, we're now on close to the airport. We're right near the final train stop, the smart stop at airports. So we're right next. It's the old Ag Credit Building, if you're familiar with that, next to Sonoma Water. So we just moved in. If you're trying to find us by your park membership, I don't have anything else.
Petaluma.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when we last met and whether or not we had done, I think I had announced maybe at the last TAC meeting, maybe it wasn't BPAC, that we were implementing our D Street pilot project. So that is now in. So that was a mile long quick build project where we restriped D Street from Pelham Boulevard South to city limits. Added parking or added bike lanes, class 2 bike lanes in both directions along that stretch, and also added several new crosswalks and then upgraded existing crosswalks. And at each of our uncontrolled crosswalks along the corridor, we added median islands. So something to which double as, you know, not only pedestrian safety, but also the goal with those was traffic calming because they create some lane shifts throughout the corridor. And so now we are obviously in the evaluation stage and collecting lots of data and feedback on the project. And it'll be in place through 2025. And then we've got a paving project, paving and utility project scheduled for 25, 26. So this will help inform the long-term configuration of D Street. And we've also we're wrapping up a pretty big paving project on Maria Drive with lots of bicycle and pedestrian enhancements. And then we also just got going on, earlier this summer, we awarded an on-call striping contract, and we also just awarded an on-call concrete contract. So we've got a lot more flexibility now in implementing smaller projects without having to go out to bid. On both of those, we've got our prices locked in, and we've got someone to help us get things done. So lots of exciting stuff happening.
I'm not sure if I gave an update about Steel Lane last time I was here, or at the last meeting, but in Steel Lane, we're doing phase 2 of our pilot study. The original phase just kind of took a lane going westbound, and now we took a lane going eastbound as well. And so there's protection on the west side closest to Steel Lane Elementary. It's definitely slowed speeds down. We installed a 2-way left turn pocket in the middle of the road so that it's better for emergency response, and then also for side street traffic to get, across. Instead of 4 lanes, it's only like 2 lanes now. So we've seen some improvements. There's been mixed reviews from the public. Some people like it, some people hate it. But I think the key is to slow speeds down in that corridor where there's children present constantly. So I know, I forget if I shared this, but last year there was a kid that actually ran out into the road and was in the protected area. And because there was that protection there, it was pretty much saved. I got to see some video footage of that and it was pretty intense to watch. But I feel like a goal future down the road is to make improvements like this all over Santa Rosa and to slow people down throughout the city.
Those class fours.
It's a class 4 in front of the school, but not the whole way, just in front of the school.
Can I ask, how are you cleaning your class 4 protected bikeways? Because that's a problem for me to get traction on them, is a fear of keeping them clean.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we've had conversations with Recology about, they called it a buddy blow system. So going in and having someone blow the curb face, all that, the debris out of the way, and then scooping it up at the end. It seems pretty labor intensive, but until they're willing to purchase you know, a smaller sweeper, that's just kind of the way they're gonna have to do it. I feel like that'd be the way to go, just because eventually, if we're all building these things out, right, class 4s, then
Did you say Recology, or they're actually willing to do that? Go in there with the buddy blow system?
yeah, I
Right.
mean, so they've said, we got an email, right? But like I asked them to go sweep Steel Lane because it hasn't been done and I haven't heard back from them. Right now we're in a transition phase where we have like a zero waste coordinator and our last one left, I don't even know, probably like 8 months ago, and we had an interim person, but now we hired someone else. So we're just kind of in a transition phase with having someone that is going to be in constant contact with Recology.
Is that your experience too?
No, actually, thank you for reminding me of another important update. We actually, on September 9th, our council approved a purchase of a bike lane sweeper. So, I'm looking. Yeah, so we ended up buying it's called the multi-hog CV. The minimum operating width is about 48 inches, so 4 feet. And then the maximum operating width is, I believe, closer to 8 feet. So about multi-use pathway width. And it actually has a lot of utility. There's a lot of different attachments you can get for it. So it can do a lot more than just sweep. We bought a pressure washing attachment, so we can use it, on our sidewalks downtown or in our parks. So we're planning on using it for much more than bike lanes, but the real impetus for it was what really inspired the purchase was the recognition that we want to keep our protected bike lanes swept. This model cost $180,000. It's a diesel unit and they have an electric unit, but it's, I think, close to twice as expensive, and the lead and the delivery time is much, much longer, whereas this model was readily available. We had the same conversations with Recology, and we were not terribly encouraged by the direction that was going, so we just decided to take it into our own hands, and then our street operations staff will be using it and sweeping our bike lanes, and so we'll get a schedule going on that.
Maybe we could rent it from you
Yeah.
for a day
Yeah.
or two.
Yeah. No,
Not
I'm sure
kidding.
there's
I'm actually
possibility
not
to do that.
joking.
No, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of potential for that.
To it. Talk about it internally. All right, any updates here at the table?
There was one other option from our neighbors in Napa around bike lane sweeping. It's at a fraction of the cost. It's called the Eco Sweeper, and it's more of a trailer that you attach to your bicycle. And by the width of it, looks like you might have to do 2 rounds to get the width of a full multi-use path, but it's about $4,500. And yeah, I think it's the Bike Coalition is helping kind of lead that effort to keep some of those bike paths clean.
Bjorn, does yours vacuum or does it just sweep to the side?
Yeah, no, it vacuums.
And what
Yep.
about that one that you're?
This
talking about?
one's, yeah, it just kind of picks it up with like a rolling back. I guess it doesn't look like it's a sucking attachment. It's more just kind of rolls it up and picks it and throws it into some bins that you then empty out. But if you look up, yeah, Napa Valley, eco sweeper, it should come up.
Yeah, I will say one of the one limitation with ours, you know, it's a pretty small vehicle, so it doesn't have a ton of storage. So we likely, especially if they're going out and doing a lot of sweeping, we'll probably have a truck following behind, and then every so often they'll have to empty the container out into a dump truck or something. So might be a multi-vehicle operation. We'll get that dialed in. And obviously the more frequently we sweep, the less that will be an issue, but.
That's excellent. Um, John, I see you up there. You have a report from Sebastopol.
Yeah, just a quick one. We are finalizing our public engagement part of the Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Grant that we received. And we're looking at having one of our first stakeholder meetings, public stakeholder meetings in November. And this is to kind of redesign our downtown through Main Street, about halfway down to Willow, and provide better pedestrian and safety opportunities for all types of travel. One of the options is, if folks are familiar with Main Street, it used to be a two-way pass through, and now it's been one way for quite some time. So there is an option to converting it back to a two-way pass through there.
Thanks, John. Report from Hillsburg. Michael? You still there?
Second here. Our ATP is being presented to City Council on October 7th. Then we'll go public then for a 2-month period. I think the plan is to adopt early January. The Grove Street neighborhood improvement plan is chugging along. We're going to add a bike lane on the northern section of Grove Street. We're going to remove some on-street parking there. Nothing really else new to report.
I did get an update from the Safe Process School program. I can just provide that now, since they usually are in the roundtable. So Christina wasn't able to be here today, but she just wanted to remind everyone that International Walk and Roll to School Day is Wednesday, October 9th this year. And there are 62 schools registered to participate this year. So that's, I believe, maybe record breaking or close to it. So, very excited.
All right. Then guess that's everybody. Do an update on the shared micromobility.
Yeah, so the regional bike share program in Snow and Marin counties is moving along. Redwood Bike Share. There are 2 jurisdictions along the corridor that are fully permitted and approved to begin operations. And others are very close behind. So installations are going to be starting as soon as late this week in those 2 jurisdictions, Cotati and San Rafael. With the others, hopefully, coming very closely behind. And so there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but we're getting close and starting to talk about there will be kind of a phased soft launch as the various cities come online. And we're starting to talk about a ribbon cutting event and trying to narrow down a date for that. But that will be hopefully once all of the jurisdictions are active and
That'll be an
turned on.
interesting ribbon. Long.
A very
ribbon.
long ribbon. Now, we're looking at doing an event in Petaluma, so kind of in
Okay.
the middle of the corridor.
And I talked to Mark and I know the bikes are in Roanoke Park.
Yes.
and That's where they're storing them right now. So,
Yes, the warehouse is set up. The bikes are in the warehouse and branded. And there's, I believe, two techs that are going through the onboarding process. So
it's great.
it's
It's
coming
actually
together.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
Can I ask how far, I mean, can I ask what, I mean, it's a smart access, I mean, that's how it was started, right? Smart access, first mile, last mile. So is for Smart's process and getting their hubs, is it a station by station issue or are all of them going to be online at the same time, like maybe soon?
Yeah, so
See,
the approval will be for all of them at once, but then the installation, I think, will be prioritized in the jurisdictions that have
other
fully
hubs.
approved the other hubs. So, yeah, I think that's how it'll be phased, so that they could turn on, maybe the first two jurisdictions first. Makes sense. And, I think and have the smart station connections there. Makes sense. Yeah, and it will be, we'll kind of wait to do a big marketing push until most of the system is online.
Great. Any questions or comments on that? Anything online? See anything? All right.
Week without driving is next week, so don't forget.
Pardon? Say-
Week without driving is next week, so
Ooh.
don't forget.
Ooh, check good. We have two people. Okay, we'll move on to update on SCTA loaner equipment replacement.
Yeah, that's me. So we've got some good news. We have ordered two new bicycle count systems. I want it. All right. Here's the first one is the Pyro Box Evo. It's this small little box you see here, so it's pretty tiny. And this is just going to be tracking essentially warm bodies, not distinguishing between bicyclists and pedestrians. I'm sure maybe large dogs might get counted too now that I think about it. But the point is, you're not going to really be able to distinguish between pedestrians and bicyclists, but it is subtle enough that it's appropriate for places like walkways, trails, downtowns, places where there's going to be high traffic, where maybe you want to do a pedestrian study. This has also been, I know, used at some trails just north of city of Sonoma as well. Larger versions of this actually, so it'll be even easier to place these around. The other one that we got is kind of a 2-for-1, which is exciting. It's called the Mobile Multi. So you can see it here. It has this box on the pole, and then there's also the two cords, tubes that are coming down. And so this is a 2-for-1 in the sense that it has the infrared counter, so it's counting the warm bodies, but then it also has the tubes to be able to distinguish, is that a bicyclist or is it a pedestrian? So it does the counting internally and then gives you the final result. So it's, it can be very helpful. Don't have to necessarily choose between one or the other. You can have both options automatically. Once these are delivered and we do some testing, we'll put the call out. We're expecting them in the next few weeks. So those will be ready for deployment soon. there is also the issue of our existing counters as well too. Those are one version is just that simple infrared box. It's a little bit larger. And then there's also just the bicycle counters with the tubes. We're open if to ideas. They're kind of going to be recycled eventually at the end of their lifetime. But if there is some transportation study you want to do around bicyclists and don't have any real need to have I guess, any real time frame around when you need to have it back, or a big risk in case the battery does run out. You have to go there essentially every time to be able to upload your data. But those are available right now. So if you want to say just put it out in some place and check every week and download the data, those are open to use. Otherwise, we'll probably just see if they're recyclable. They're at their end of their lifetime. So we don't have a specific use for them and the company doesn't want them back. So those are some of the options we're looking at. So definitely open to any comments, questions. I'll just mention also that I believe we are planning for a presentation by the company EcoCounter at the next meeting to showcase some of their more advanced counters, video cameras that are kind of have artificial intelligence enhancements that are able to distinguish between scooters, bicycles, cars, bikes. So for those more complicated intersections rather than those kind of pathways where there's more of a linear movement, it's called Citrix, I believe, is more of trying to look at those, intersections with diverse movements, seeing where there's tracking movement. So something to look forward to for hopefully our next meeting.
Exactly. All right, and then last bit of business, other business comments and announcements.
I do want to just bring up the schedule for our next meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled right now on November 26th, which is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. It's always a little hard to get people here during that week.
You're never gonna get a quorum.
Yeah. And we also wanted to have an opportunity to discuss with this committee in more detail the draft countywide active transportation plan, and that wasn't ready for today's meeting. So I would like to propose having a special meeting on the 4th Tuesday of October and canceling the November meeting. So yeah, I just want to check in with the group if that seems like it would work for your schedule. Let me double check. I think that's
It's the 29th, Dana.
22nd, October 22nd.
I think so.
Come here. You won't be here. I mean, alternatively, we could hold a virtual discussion on the countywide active transportation plan, but seeing that, the November meeting might be difficult anyways. We might just move it a month ahead. And then that would be the last meeting for the year till January.
And then to facilitate that discussion, there'll be material to review.
Yes, we would send out the countywide draft countywide plan ahead of time and yeah, some specific things to focus on.
That would work for me.
Okay. Yeah, so unless I hear any major objections, we'll go ahead and make that change.
Any other announcements? Well, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody that showed up.
Thank you.
Your new office, is it